My name is Charles Walsh. I am 93 years old. I spent 45 years building a business I was proud of. I had 27 pharmacies, over 200 employees. My name was in the local paper. And today, looking at this, I would trade half of it all for the one thing I missed. I was born in 1931, the year the world was shrinking from the Great Depression. Poverty isn't just a textbook word for my generation. It's a taste. The taste of bread stretched over 3 days. It's that feeling, icy, nauseating, when the firewood runs out and it's February outside. It's the look in my father's eyes, weary to the very core of his soul, when he came home from another unsuccessful day searching for work. He was a good carpenter, a craftsman, but who needs craftsmen when the world is falling apart? He taught me 2 things back then: honesty in every stroke, in every nail, and fear, a deep, bone-deep fear of instability, that everything you have can vanish in an instant. That fear, I now understand, became the fuel for my entire youth. I swore to myself that I would have, that I would build such a fortress of sufficiency and recognition that no wind of poverty could ever reach me again. I saw the goal, not just money, respect, a place in the sun, substance, so that when I walked into a room, people would turn, not out of pity, as they sometimes did for my father, but out of respect, so that my name would mean something. I started like many then from zero. In 1948, I came back from the war with $300 in my pocket and a hole in my soul that needed filling. I worked 90 hours a week, physically, with my hands, unloaded boxes, painted walls, stood behind a counter for 14 hours a day until my legs hummed like wires. And you know that feeling when you build something with your own hands? Not on paper, but like this, from nothing, from an empty room and a pile of stock. That was my drug, stronger than any whiskey. Every package of aspirin sold, every grateful nod from a regular customer, that was a drop of validation. I thought like a mantra: one more store, one more dollar in revenue, one more goal, and then I'll become somebody. Then I'll start living. That was a lie. The most expensive lie of my life. Because someday never comes. You just wake up one day and realize you spent all your nows chasing that phantom later. I wasn't building a chain of pharmacies. I was building a network of trust, tiny islands of calm and certainty in the churning ocean of life. I opened the first Walsh's Pharmacy on the corner of Elm Street and 2nd Avenue in 1955. I remember that day as vividly as if it were yesterday. The smell of fresh paint and new wooden shelves, the heavy, imposing cash register, the display window I polished to a shine, and that quiet, deafening silence before opening, a silence full of possibilities. I stood there, behind the counter, a 24-year-old kid, and thought, this is it, the beginning of everything. We got married a year later. God is my witness. It was the most important contract of my life. Not the lease for the store on Main Street, not the $1 million loan from the bank. It was a vow, on paper, sealed with a stamp, and in my soul, carved in stone. And I believed every word. But youth is blindness in a beautiful frame of ambition. I loved her madly, but I was also madly in love with my dream, and that second romance, it turned out to be very jealous. Gradually, day by day, like a poisonous fog creeping in from the sea, the dream began to steal time from love. Not with malicious intent. Nobody wakes up thinking, "Today I will betray what's most precious for a quarterly report." It happens differently. "Honey, I have to stay late. There's a supply crisis." "Evie, I can't make the picnic on Sunday. I'm interviewing a manager for the new location." "Darling, you understand. I'm doing this for us, for our future, for the children, for us." That became my magic spell, my justification for everything. And then they appeared. Children. When Sarah was born, my God, I was over the moon. I held that tiny, fragile bundle of life and swore to myself, she will have the best of everything. Everything I was deprived of. I swore. And the next morning at 9 sharp, I was sitting in the bank, negotiating a line of credit for the 3rd pharmacy. To secure her future, I told myself, tapping a pencil on a chart. To give her opportunities. I bought the prettiest dresses, the most fashionable toys. Later, her first car. I showered her with gifts and missed her life. Dad can't make it. An important deal fell through. I was building a future for her, brick by brick, with a fanatic's focus. And I was blind as a mole. I didn't see that her present, her childhood, her victories and tears, her need wasn't for another shiny trinket, but for her dad to see her win those silly races on her tricycle. For him to take her hand and lead her to the zoo on a Saturday, smelling of popcorn and animals, not to hand money to the nanny saying, "Buy her the biggest ice cream." And me? I justified myself with scale. "I'm creating something greater," I'd say to my reflection in my tie's knot. "Not just a business, a legacy. The name Walsh will mean something in this city." And you know what? I achieved it. By the 80s, Walsh's Pharma Plus was 27 stores, over 200 families I paid salaries to, my name in the papers. I was invited to the city council. I was successful. But then it happened. 1987. My first and largest store burned down. On the corner of Elm Street and 2nd Avenue. Not just a building. My 40 years went up in flames. Every crack in the floor I knew. Every scratch on the counter with a story. A total loss. I sat on the cold sidewalk in the ashes and watched the charred beams smoke. And I thought only one thing. It's all over. I am nobody. Charles Walsh is this ash, and nothing more. And then Evelyn approached me, my wife. She didn't say, "I told you so," or "What are we going to do now?" She didn't cry. She took my hand and simply wrapped her warm hands around it. And she said, quietly, but in a way that her words cut through the wail of sirens and the crackle of the fire. She said, "Charlie, our home is intact. Our children are healthy and asleep in their beds. I am with you. And if tomorrow we have to open a lemonade stand on this very corner, we'll open it, and we'll work it together." In that moment, I understood everything. The full depth of my blindness. I had been building a sand empire, meticulously sculpting every turret, believing it was eternal. And the only true rock, unshakable and immovable, turned out to be her and our family. Everything that couldn't burn. The fire took from me everything I thought mattered, and left me with the only thing that truly did. Now look at yourselves, you young people. You're running after titles, after the senior prefix, after recognition on LinkedIn, the size of the bonus, the corner office. You think that's your fortress, your armor against the world, your proof that you've made it. That is not a fortress. Those are decorations. Beautiful, glossy, impressive, but made of cardboard. When the real storm of life hits for real, and it will hit, it's not a matter of if, but when. Illness, loss, failure, a crisis that sweeps away everything in its path. These decorations will be torn to shreds in a second, and you will remain on bare, windy ground. And then only hands will remain. Hands ready to catch you, or they won't. And in that silence after the storm, you will understand with crystal, painful clarity where you actually invested your best strength, time, and soul, and in what assets. I'm not telling you quit your job. Work is dignity. It's respect for yourself. It's your contribution. I'm saying something much more complex. Stop making an idol out of it. My business was sold long ago. The pharmacies bear someone else's name. Those 27 dots on the map, they're gone. But when these two come bursting in on a Sunday with shouts of "Grandpa!" to show me a beetle they found or a scribbled drawing, that's it. That's my real, living, breathing legacy. What didn't burn in that fire? What will outlive me? What, it turns out, it was all for.